Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If Reborn in Highschool DxD as a Lucifuge. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 231, Capturing Older Sister Graphia Heading to the Konosuba World. Rias, I'm back, Roy announced, returning after a brief absence. Welcome back. Rias, Akino, Kaneko, and the others greeted him. Who is she? Rias asked, looking curiously at the girl with crimson hair who looked strikingly similar to her. Let me introduce everyone. This is Mio Naruse, and this is Maria Naruse, Roy said, introducing the girls. Mio felt a pang of insecurity as she looked at Rias, who was even more beautiful and elegant than her. She was still a bit dazed. Roy hadn't explained much before bringing them back. They were still trying to process everything. It took them half a day to finally understand the situation, thanks to the explanations from the other girls. But understanding the truth only made them more bewildered. Roy was incredibly powerful. And to think that they had actually tried to use charm magic on him when they first met. Life returned to its peaceful routine. Roy spent his days enjoying the company of his harem. Jack, come here. I have some snacks for you, Roy called out, playing hide-and-seek with Jack the Ripper in the Lucifuge territory in the underworld. No! Jack shouted, then disappeared in an instant. Roy sighed. Jack was a problem child who didn't seem to like him very much. Instead, she was quite attached to Graphia and even saw her as a mother figure. And Graphia was also fond of Jack. Roy, there you are. I was looking for you, Graphia said, approaching him. Huh? What is it, sister? Roy asked. Come with me. Graphia took his hand, and they vanished in a magic circle. In Graphia's room, she looked at Roy with a serious expression. I think it's time we discussed the future of the Lucifuge family. The future? Roy was confused. They were immortal devils, why talk about the future now? Since you haven't produced any heirs yet, this is a very important matter, Graphia explained. It's too early for that, sister, Roy said with a shrug. Having children seemed like a distant concept to him. He was only 20 years old. Besides, the birth rate for devils was already low, and it decreased even further with increased strength. That's why none of his women had gotten pregnant yet. There was no need to rush. It's not too early. You know how difficult it is for us devils to have children. We have to start working on it now to increase our chances later, Graphia insisted. Alright, I understand. I've been working hard, haven't I? Roy said with a sigh. He had already gathered so many girls. Wasn't that enough effort? Yes, you have. But as your older sister, I should also do my part. Graphia activated a magic circle, and her clothes vanished. Roy was stunned, but seeing Graphia's initiative, he couldn't back down. He hadn't expected to finally conquer Graphia. It felt like a dream. Roy spent the next few months enjoying Graphia's company, lost in a blissful haze. Eventually, he returned to Kuo Town, prompted by the complaints from Rias and the others. The system had refreshed many new worlds during his absence, but only a few caught his attention. The first was, problem children are coming from another world, aren't they? Roy's eyes lit up. This was the key to the world of Little Garden. But with his current stellar level power, he couldn't do whatever he wanted in Little Garden. And life there wasn't necessarily suitable for him. If he remembered correctly, some communities in Little Garden still lived a life of hard labor. In that case, it was better to stay in the world of Highschool DxD for now. But he would eventually visit Little Garden. Just not yet. The next two worlds made him hesitate. One was Konosuba, God's blessing on this wonderful world, and the other was, is it wrong to try to pick up girls in a dungeon? Both worlds had powerful gods that could potentially help him increase his strength. If he could contract them and advance to the Solaric level, he would be able to roam freely in Little Garden. After some consideration, Roy decided to visit the world of Konosuba first. The world of Danmachi was complex, with numerous gods and factions. He wasn't sure if he could handle it with his current power. Hence, Konosuba was the safer choice. Although Aqua was a bit of an airhead, she was still the goddess of water. And despite being ridiculed by many for her stupidity, Aqua was still beautiful. Roy didn't mind her flaws at all. There was also Eris, the goddess of luck, who was petite and cute, even if she was a bit flat-chested. But both Aqua and Eris seemed to dislike devils. It wouldn't be easy to win them over. And despite their seemingly unreliable personalities, they were still legitimate gods with considerable power, likely at least at the planetary level or higher. Although they weren't strong enough to help him reach the Solaric level, they could still boost his power. To advance to the Solaric level, he would need to contract many more planetary-level beings, or even stellar-level beings. Roy informed Rias and Sona of his decision. Rias, Sona, and the others were actually quite interested in visiting other worlds. They were eager to see what Roy's adventure worlds were like. Roy wanted to take them with him, but not yet. He would wait until he had conquered this new world first. It wouldn't take long. The girls agreed. They were looking forward to visiting another world. Roy cast a spell on himself to conceal his demonic aura. This would make it easier to approach Aqua and Eris. Having made all the necessary preparations, he vanished from the living room in a flash of white light. He reappeared above the bustling town of Axel, a popular destination for adventurers in the world of Konosuba. The town, with its unique otherworldly charm, fascinated Roy. This was sometime before the main events of the story. Kazuma Satu, the protagonist, and Aqua, the goddess of water, would soon arrive in this town. Roy had some preparations to make before that happened. First, he needed money. The currency in this world was called Eris. Yes, it was named after the goddess Eris. Roy glanced at the Eris coins in the hands of a nearby street vendor, then activated his magic. Several Eris coins materialized in his hand. The currency in this world consisted of gold coins, silver coins, and copper coins, all called Eris. Their value was roughly equivalent to Japanese yen. The gold Eris coins Roy had created were worth 10,000 Eris each. With money in hand, he headed towards the Adventurers Guild to register as an adventurer. The Adventurer Guild was filled with wooden tables and chairs, and a few adventurers were chatting and drinking. Roy, dressed in a blue cloak made of expensive-looking fabric, his tall and handsome figure exuding an air of nobility, attracted everyone's attention as he entered. "Who's that? He looks like a noble," the adventurers whispered among themselves. Roy ignored them and walked towards the counter. Several waitresses in short skirts, their legs on full display, were smitten by his appearance. But the receptionist Luna, a mature woman with golden hair and a voluptuous figure, looked at him with curiosity. She wasn't fawning over him like the other girls. She was intrigued by his presence. Luna was a kind and helpful woman. But she was also known for being stingy when it came to paying out rewards. She had explained the basics of adventuring to Kazuma and Aqua when they first arrived and helped them register. She was an idol to many adventurers, and any man who tried to get close to her would be met with hostility. Due to her busy work schedule, she was still unmarried. Even Roy was slightly interested in her, but he didn't show it. He approached her with a gentle smile. "Is this where I register as an adventurer?" he asked. "Huh?" Luna was confused. He seemed well-equipped. Why would he ask such a question? Was he not an adventurer already? "Are you not an adventurer yet?" she asked. "That's right," Roy replied with a smile and a nod. Luna was relieved. She was always a bit nervous when dealing with powerful adventurers, but she was more comfortable with newbies. After all, she had plenty of experience guiding new adventurers. "You'll need some heiress to register," she reminded him. But then, she looked at his expensive clothes and shook her head. Someone like him wouldn't be short on money. Roy didn't waste any time and placed 2 gold heiress coins on the counter. "Is this enough?" he asked with a chuckle. "Of course." Luna smiled and began the registration process. Chapter 232, Luna of the Adventurers Guild, meeting the useless goddess Aqua. The device used to register adventurers was a machine with a blue crystal orb at its center, giving it a somewhat futuristic appearance. "Let me explain," Luna said, stepping out from behind the counter and approaching Roy with a friendly smile. Her ample bosom was on full display, drawing attention. But Roy remained unfazed. After all, he had seen much more revealing sights back home. Luna, noticing that he wasn't staring at her inappropriately, felt a surge of favorability towards him. Her smile became more genuine. Adventurers have various jobs. You can choose a job that suits your talents. This is a registration card, Luna explained, holding up a small card. It records your basic information, the quests you've completed, and your level. As you level up, you can learn new skills. So work hard and become stronger. Seeing Roy listening attentively, Luna smiled again. She couldn't help but feel a connection with this charming young man, and she found herself explaining things in more detail than usual. Roy listened patiently with a smile. Luna got carried away and started sharing stories about adventurers, but Roy didn't interrupt her. He listened with genuine interest. They chatted and got to know each other. After a while, "I'm sorry for talking so much. Now, Roy-san, please place your hand on this crystal orb," Luna said, finally remembering her duties. The other adventurers in the guild hall, seeing this, felt a pang of jealousy. Their Luna had never been this friendly to a newbie before. Was their precious flower about to be plucked? They glared at Roy with hostility. He suppressed his magic power and placed his hand on the crystal orb. The orb glowed brightly, illuminating the entire guild hall with a blue light. Even though Roy had suppressed his power, the slightest trace of his magic caused a dramatic reaction. The adventurers were stunned and stood up to see what was happening. The receptionists, blinded by the intense light, shielded their eyes. Only Luna stared at the orb with her mouth agape. She had never seen anything like this before. She knew that the brighter the light, the greater the potential of the person being tested. She had encountered a talented adventurer before who had made the orb glow quite brightly, but compared to this, it was like a firefly compared to the sun. Roy was like the radiant sun. Luna was both excited and curious about his talent. The light from the orb then formed a beam that shone on a blank adventurer card, inscribing information on it like a typewriter. Usually, this process was quick, but this time it took a while. Luna waited patiently, then finally snatched up the card when it was finished. "How did it go?" Roy asked with a smile. Let me see." Luna's eyes widened as she read the first line. Magic aptitude, max fire magic affinity, max water magic affinity, max ice magic affinity, max. As she read the stats aloud, the guild hall fell silent, the only sound being the gulps of stunned adventurers. And no way. Even a great mage wouldn't have such magic aptitude. This is insane. Is the machine broken? Has a hero who can defeat the Demon King finally appeared in our humble town? The adventurers whispered among themselves, unable to believe what they were hearing. Magic aptitude at max? That was unheard of. But Luna wasn't finished yet. Strength, max, agility, max. Swordsmanship, max, spearmanship, max, luck, max, intelligence, max, she continued. The adventurers were speechless. Every stat she read was max. Of course, this was to be expected. Roy was a stellar-level being. Testing him with a device meant for novice adventurers was like using a ruler to measure the size of a planet. It was only natural for him to max out all the stats. Luna finally finished reading all the stats and let out a sigh of relief. She couldn't help but wonder if Roy was a god in disguise. Roy-sama, this is your information. Based on your talents, you can choose to become an archmage, a magic swordsman, a magic knight. Anything you want, she said, her tone unconsciously becoming respectful. Roy smiled. Then I'll choose to be a magic swordsman. That's an excellent choice. It's one of the highest-ranking jobs. Luna explained with a wink. She quickly updated his registration card. Roy was now officially a magic swordsman. In this world, all beings possessed a soul within their bodies. Whenever a creature was killed or consumed, or its life force extinguished through other means, a portion of its soul and memories would be absorbed. This was known as experience points (EXP). Normally, this process was invisible to the naked eye. By absorbing experience points, adventurers would level up and become stronger. Their adventurer cards would also gain upgrade points, which could be used to learn new skills or enhance existing ones. This world had a comprehensive leveling system, similar to that of a video game. Adventurers could quickly gain strength by defeating monsters and leveling up. Roy even considered going to the world of Black Bullet to gather the cursed children and mass-produce adventurers here. After all, the world of Black Bullet was also one of the worlds that had been refreshed in the system. But he decided to put that plan on hold for now and focus on the current world. Having successfully registered as an adventurer, it was time to leave the guild hall. Thank you, Luna-san. I'll be going now, Roy said with a smile. Luna handed him his adventurer card, then bowed deeply along with the other smitten receptionists. Roy-sama, we wish you good luck on your adventures. We look forward to seeing your future achievements. Roy couldn't help but glance at their ample bosoms, which were barely concealed by their skimpy outfits. Luna, noticing his gaze, smiled to herself. It seemed this young man wasn't completely immune to her charms. Thank you for your blessings. But I suggest you wear something a bit more modest in the future, Luna-san, Roy said with a chuckle before turning to leave. Luna blushed and looked down at her revealing outfit. Perhaps she should dress more conservatively. After all, no one would want to marry her if she kept dressing like this. Roy left the guild hall and quickly located Kazuma and Aqua with his senses. Aqua was throwing a tantrum, having just arrived in this world. Roy walked towards them. What should I do? What am I going to do now? Aqua wailed, tugging on Kazuma's collar, her face a mask of despair. People stared at her, then quickly averted their gazes. What was with this crazy girl? She was so embarrassing. Even Roy, approaching them, couldn't help but cringe. Aqua wasn't very appealing in this state. But he still walked towards them. After all, Aqua was still a goddess, and she could be trained. If all else failed, he could always use a spell to make her maintain a goddess-like expression. Ahem, excuse me, do you need any help? Roy asked with a friendly smile. Ah, yes, please. Could you tell us where the Adventurers Guild is? Kazuma asked, relieved that someone had offered to help. Aqua also looked at Roy curiously. Are you planning to become adventurers? Then follow me, Roy said, leading the way. Thank you so much. Kazuma exclaimed gratefully. They followed him. Roy smirked. His plan was going smoothly. Aqua, having just arrived in this world, was naturally wary of strangers. She only trusted Kazuma. So, to win her over, he had to gain their trust first. Then, he would simply get rid of Kazuma. That was his plan. And he wouldn't underestimate Aqua's trust in Kazuma. In the original story, one of the people who had been reincarnated into this world with a cheat ability from Aqua was Kyuya Mitsurugi, who respected Aqua greatly. When he first met Aqua, he had tried to recruit her, but she refused. She preferred to suffer with Kazuma, a low-level adventurer, rather than join Kyuya, who possessed a powerful magic sword. This showed how important trust was. By the way, I'm Kazuma Satu. May I know your name? Kazuma asked, trying to gather information about Roy. I'm Roy Lucifuge. And what about her? Roy introduced himself, then looked at Aqua. "I'm Goddess Aqua," Aqua declared proudly, puffing out her chest. "Goddess?" Roy raised an eyebrow. She's a bit eccentric." "Don't mind her," Kazuma explained awkwardly. Roy chuckled. Kazuma then asked about the town, and Roy patiently answered his questions. He knew quite a bit about this town. Chapter 233, Aqua is still pretty great, the giant toad extermination quest. The trio arrived at the Adventurers Guild. "So this is the Adventurers Guild," Kazuma said with a hint of awe in his voice. "It's scary," Aqua exclaimed, clutching her clothes tightly. Roy chuckled, finding her reaction amusing. "Ha! That guy's back," one of the adventurers exclaimed as they entered the guild hall. The adventurers all remembered Roy and his incredible talent. "Roy-san, do you know these people?" Kazuma asked, curious about the attention they were receiving. "No, I don't. I just registered as an adventurer today," Roy replied. "Really? I didn't expect you to be a newbie too," Kazuma said, surprised. "The registration counter is over there." Roy pointed towards the counter. They ignored the curious gazes of the other adventurers and approached the counter. "Roy-sama, you're back." Luna greeted him with a bright smile. Roy was surprised. Luna was now wearing a more modest outfit. Although it was less revealing than before, she still looked beautiful and elegant. "Yes, I brought 2 friends to register as adventurers," Roy explained. Luna, noticing his surprise, smiled even wider. "No problem." She retrieved the blue crystal orb used for registration. "So, who wants to go first? And by the way, there's a registration fee," she reminded them with a professional smile. Okay, wait, a fee?" Kazuma's face fell as he realized he might have to pay. He turned to Aqua. "Hey, do you have any money?" Aqua shook her head. "I was brought here suddenly. How could I have any money?" Kazuma sighed. Useless goddess, he thought. Roy stepped in to save them. "I'll pay the registration fee," he offered, placing 4 gold Eris coins on the counter. "Ah, thank you so much," Aqua exclaimed gratefully, taking the coins and glaring at Kazuma. "Useless man." She then handed the coins to Luna. Kazuma's eye twitched, annoyed at being called useless by the useless goddess. Luna collected the fee and explained the basics of adventuring to them. "Now, please place your hands on the crystal orb. Who wants to go first?" "Me." Aqua volunteered, stepping forward and placing her hand on the orb. A bright light emanated from the orb, attracting the attention of the surrounding adventurers. "Wow! Aside from your intelligence being below average and your luck being abysmal, all your other stats are far above average. You even have a few max stats," Luna exclaimed, looking at Aqua's adventurer card. "Really? So I'm awesome?" Aqua asked with a smug grin. "More than awesome. Although you can't be a mage, which requires high intelligence, you can choose any other job you want. It's a shame, though." "A shame? What do you mean?" "It's a shame that someone with even higher stats has already appeared. Otherwise, your stats would be the highest in history," Luna explained with a sigh. Although Aqua's initial stats were impressive, they were nothing compared to Roy's. This was to be expected. As a goddess who had been reincarnated, her power was limited. It was normal for her stats to be lower. "There's someone stronger than me? Who is it?" Aqua asked curiously. She was a goddess. She couldn't believe there was someone with better initial stats than her. "It's Roy-sama," Luna replied, gesturing towards Roy. "Ha!" Kazuma and Aqua were surprised. They hadn't expected the person who brought them here to be powerful. Roy simply smiled and shrugged. Luna turned to Aqua. "Aqua-sama, you can choose to be a crusader, a swordmaster, an archbishop. Any advanced job you want. So, what will it be?" It's a shame there's no goddess job. I'll be an archbishop then. I'll heal my companions, Aqua declared proudly. Archbishop. It's a versatile and powerful job that allows you to use all kinds of healing and support magic. Welcome to the Adventurers Guild, Aqua-sama. Luna and the other receptionists bowed deeply to Aqua. This was a sign of respect for an advanced job. Only those with advanced jobs received such treatment. The other adventurers also cheered. As everyone was celebrating Aqua's impressive stats, Kazuma also placed his hand on the crystal orb. The orb didn't glow and quickly finished analyzing his stats. Luna picked up his adventurer card and examined it. So, am I a genius too? What job should I choose? Sword Master? Crusader? Kazuma mumbled, already lost in his fantasies. Sata Kazuma-san, is it? Well, your stats are quite average. Aside from your slightly above average intelligence and decent luck. Luna trailed off. But those stats aren't very useful for an adventurer. With your luck, I'd recommend becoming a merchant. Kazuma's face fell. Aqua couldn't help but snicker. Hey, your life as an adventurer is already over before it even began. No one's going to defeat the Demon King now. Ha ha ha, defeating the Demon King, you say? A bald adventurer nearby burst out laughing, and the others joined in. With your stats, you should listen to Luna-san and become a merchant. You'll just die if you become an adventurer, a female adventurer chimed in. Of course, they were just trying to discourage him from throwing his life away. Kazuma's face hardened. It seemed this world was more dangerous than he had anticipated. Perhaps he should just become a merchant. But then, he shook his head. He had come to this world for an adventure. He couldn't give up before he even started. I won't give up. I'll be a basic adventurer then. Please, he insisted. Alright, you can always change your job later after you level up, Luna said with a professional smile, updating his card and handing it to him. Kazuma, although disappointed, accepted the card. What should we do now? Aqua asked. Take on a quest and go on an adventure, of course. Roy, who had been silent until now, declared. That's right. Kazuma agreed. But you don't even have any weapons. How can you go on a quest? Luna asked, confused. Kazuma and Aqua exchanged glances. Don't worry about that. I might not have much money, but I can still afford some basic weapons. As a friend I just met, I'll buy you some, Roy offered generously. Roy-san, thank you so much. Kazuma exclaimed, almost in tears. Thank you, Roy. You're such a good person. Aqua added with a smile. Roy's lips twitched at the compliment. He wasn't a good person at all. So, what kind of quest are you interested in? We have plenty to choose from, Luna said, showing them the quest board. They examined the available quests. Kazuma spotted a quest to subjugate giant frogs. He figured that even if the frogs were large, they shouldn't be too difficult to kill. It seemed much easier than hunting wolves or other wild beasts. Let's take this one, he declared. No problem, Roy agreed. Aqua also had no objections. They accepted the quest and went to the weapons shop. Roy bought them some basic weapons. Kazuma and Roy each got a short sword, and Aqua got a wooden staff. They were all very basic and cheap weapons. Then, they set off towards the giant frog's habitat. It was getting late. They had to complete the quest and find a place to stay before nightfall. They soon arrived at a vast grassland. Roy was surprised that the giant frogs lived in a grassland. It didn't seem like a suitable environment for them. Is that a giant frog? Kazuma asked, staring at the massive creature that was as big as an elephant. Yes, that's a giant frog. It's one of the easiest monsters to defeat on the quest board, Roy confirmed with a smile. It's so big. Aqua exclaimed. Kazuma gulped, then said with feigned bravery, "Then I'll go first." He gripped his sword tightly and cautiously approached the giant frog. Roy and Aqua watched from behind, not offering any assistance. But as soon as Kazuma got close, the giant frog noticed him. It leaped towards Kazuma with surprising speed. Its massive body crashed onto the ground, shaking the earth. Kazuma's courage instantly evaporated, and he turned and fled, screaming, "Aqua, help! Roy-san, help!" He ran as fast as he could, regretting his decision to take this quest. Wouldn't it have been better to become a merchant? With his knowledge from his past life and his intelligence, he could have been successful. Chapter 234, Kazuma Merchant Dream. Aqua gets held in the mouth. Aqua watched Kazuma flee, then burst into laughter. "Ha ha ha ha! That's hilarious! Kazuma's running away! Ha 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 ha!" Roy, seeing her unrestrained laughter, was speechless. "Aqua, can you not laugh so foolishly?" he asked, sighing. As expected of the goddess of uselessness, even her laughter was exaggerated. "Ha!" Aqua stopped laughing and glared at him, her hands on her hips. "I'm a goddess. How dare you call me foolish?" "Oh? What kind of goddess?" Roy asked, feigning ignorance. "Listen carefully. I'm Aqua, the goddess worshipped by the Axis cult. The goddess of water. So you should address me as Aqua-sama," she declared, puffing out her chest and pointing a finger at Roy. "But to avoid attention, you can just call me Aqua," she added generously. "I see." Roy chuckled. She was indeed a goddess, although most people wouldn't believe it. "Eh? You believe me?" Aqua was surprised by his reaction. Most people wouldn't believe her claims. "I have no reason not to believe you. But now's not the time for that. I should go save Kazuma," Roy said, then headed towards Kazuma. If he didn't hurry, Kazuma would be eaten by the giant frog. Kazuma, seeing Roy approaching, sighed in relief and ran towards him, panting heavily. "Roy-san, be careful. Those giant frogs are tough," he warned. Although Kazuma was a bit of a wimp, he was still loyal to his friends. Roy didn't dislike him. "Don't worry, I can handle it," Roy reassured him with a smile and a confident wink, then walked towards the giant frog with his sword drawn. Boom! The giant frog leaped towards Roy, its massive body crashing onto the ground. But Roy simply swung his sword. A deep gash appeared on the frog's belly, and it collapsed, dead. He had killed it with a single strike. Kazuma's eyes widened in shock. "Amazing. Humph, Kazuma, you're so useless." Aqua scoffed. Kazuma glared at her, annoyed. He wondered why he was so afraid of the frog while Roy could defeat it so easily. Feeling a surge of courage, he charged towards another giant frog. He was determined to prove himself. But the giant frog's skin was thick and tough. An ordinary human couldn't even scratch it. Roy could easily defeat it because he was incredibly powerful. Even a low-class devil could kill a giant frog with ease, let alone Roy. Kazuma, however, was just a regular guy. As expected, his attack was useless. His sword bounced harmlessly off the frog's skin, and he was swallowed whole. Wahahaha! He was eaten by a frog. That's so funny. Aqua laughed, clutching her stomach. But she celebrated too soon. She didn't notice another giant frog approaching her from behind. The frog leaped and swallowed her in one gulp. Roy shrugged. He didn't stop the frog. Rescuing Aqua after she was eaten would earn him even more favor with her. After both Kazuma and Aqua were swallowed, he leisurely rescued Aqua first. "Wah!" Aqua cried, not caring about her appearance. Thank you, Roy," she sobbed, clinging to him. Although she was covered in smelly frog slime, Roy didn't push her away. He gently patted her back and comforted her. It's okay. I've defeated the frog," Roy reassured her. "Why, how can it be okay? I've been defiled." Aqua wailed. If the Axis cultists see me like this, my reputation as the beautiful and charming Aqua-sama will be ruined. Roy almost laughed. Was she praising herself? It's fine. Look. He snapped his fingers, and the frog slime on them vanished. Eh? Aqua looked at herself, surprised. She was clean again. That's amazing. It's just a simple cleaning spell, Roy said with a shrug. He was amused by her reaction. A normal girl would be embarrassed to be hugging someone while covered in slime. But Aqua didn't seem to care. No, I can't let this stand. I'm a goddess. I'll show that frog what I'm made of. Aqua suddenly declared, then charged towards another giant frog with a determined roar. Roy sighed. He didn't stop her. He would rescue Kazuma first. Ahem, thank you, Roy-san. Kazuma coughed, his face pale. Don't mention it. Roy-san, I think I'm not suited to be an adventurer. I'll just become a merchant, Kazuma said dejectedly. Facing death again had made him realize his limitations. He wasn't cut out to be an adventurer. Compared to Roy, he was useless. This realization made him want to give up. Roy smirked inwardly. This was exactly what he wanted. He could have simply used a spell to remove Kazuma from the party, but he didn't want to resort to such forceful methods. Being a merchant isn't bad either. With your intelligence, you'll surely become successful. I support your decision, Roy said, patting his shoulder encouragingly. Really? That's great. It seems like being a merchant is my true calling. Kazuma exclaimed, his confidence returning. Since you've decided to become a merchant, I'll give you some money as startup capital, Roy offered. Kazuma was touched. Thank you, Roy-san. Ha, don't mention it. We're friends, after all, Roy said with a smile. Kazuma was overwhelmed with gratitude. Just then, Aqua, who had charged towards the giant frog, was once again swallowed whole. Her power was limited, and her healing magic was ineffective against the giant frog. Roy and Kazuma exchanged glances. Roy-san, I'll leave Aqua to you, Kazuma said, although he felt a bit reluctant to abandon the goddess he had brought to this world. But he knew he couldn't defeat the Demon King, let alone a giant frog. So, he made the difficult decision to give up on Aqua. Don't worry, I'll take care of her, Roy assured him. He walked towards the giant frog and quickly rescued Aqua. What? Kazuma, you're really going to become a merchant? Then what am I supposed to do? If no one defeats the Demon King, I can't go back home. Aqua wailed, shaking Kazuma's collar. Kazuma sighed. He really wasn't suited to be an adventurer. Don't worry, Aqua. I'll take care of the Demon King. Roy said. That's right. With Roy-san here, defeating the Demon King will be a piece of cake. And once I become a successful merchant, I'll support your quest to defeat the Demon King, Kazuma added. Aqua was still unhappy, but she didn't say anything. She had also mocked Kazuma's stats. He was indeed not cut out to be an adventurer. She finally sighed and gave up on persuading him. They fell silent. All right, let's not worry about that now. Let's focus on completing the quest, Roy said, breaking the silence. You're right. It's getting late. We should finish the quest and find a place to stay, Kazuma agreed. He also needed the reward money to start his business. Roy then put on a show. He casually walked towards a giant frog, his sword flashing, and killed it in an instant. It looked so easy that even Kazuma thought, I could do that too. But he knew he couldn't. Roy quickly finished off the remaining giant frogs, completing the quest. All right, the quest is done. Let's go back, Roy said, and they headed towards the town to report their success at the Adventurers Guild. Chapter 235, Inviting Luna to Eat Together, Recruiting Members, Enter Megumin. Back at the Adventurers Guild, the sky had begun to darken, and the hall was filled with the lively chatter of adventurers returning from their quests. Luna, we're back to report our success. Roy announced with a smile, approaching the counter. Eh? You've already completed the quest? Luna asked in surprise. It was unusual for newbies to complete a quest so quickly, even one as simple as subjugating giant frogs. She had only allowed them to take the quest because of Roy's exceptional talent. Yes, Roy confirmed with a nod, handing her his adventurer card, which automatically recorded completed quests. Amazing! As expected of Roy-sama. Luna exclaimed, checking his card. Ha, it's all thanks to everyone's help, Roy said modestly, patting Kazuma's shoulder. Yeah, Kazuma mumbled, scratching his head awkwardly. He knew he hadn't contributed much to the quest. In fact, he had needed Roy to rescue him. That's right. Aqua chimed in, taking full credit for their success. Here's the reward for subjugating the giant frogs and the compensation for the carcasses, 110,000 eris. Please accept it, Luna said with a smile, handing them a stack of coins. Thank you, Roy said, accepting the reward. Although 110,000 eris sounded like a lot, it was only equivalent to about $1,000 in purchasing power. Split 3 ways, it wasn't much. But the cost of living was relatively low in this world, so it was enough to last them a few days. Luna, would you like to join us for dinner? Roy suddenly asked, surprising Luna. Sure. Let's go over there, Luna replied with a smile, leading them to a quiet corner of the hall. The other adventurers were stunned. Luna had never accepted anyone's invitation to dinner before. Hey, what's going on? Is our guild's beauty going to have dinner with someone? A newly returned adventurer asked in disbelief. You haven't heard? That young man just registered as an adventurer today. He has incredible talent and started with an advanced job. And that girl also has an advanced job. Another adventurer explained. The news quickly spread, and everyone in the guild hall learned about Roy and his companions. Meanwhile, as Luna and the others sat down at their table, a waitress rushed over. Luna-san, it's rare to see you accept someone's invitation to dinner, the waitress teased with a giggle. Luna blushed and glared at her, and the waitress quickly fell silent. Roy-sama, what would you like to order? Luna asked, handing him the menu. Just bring us some of your recommendations, Roy replied, handing the menu back to her. Luna nodded and gave the order to the waitress. By the way, Luna, we don't have a place to stay tonight. Could you recommend a good inn? Roy asked. Of course. There's an inn right next to the guild that caters to adventurers. It's very convenient, Luna replied. Ah, thank you so much, Kazuma said gratefully. He had been worried about finding a place to stay. Kazuma, you said you wanted to be a merchant, right? Have you figured out what you're going to do? Aqua suddenly asked. Not yet, Kazuma sighed. Although he had decided to become a merchant, he didn't know where to start. He was also feeling a bit melancholic about parting ways with Roy and Aqua. The waitress soon brought their food and drinks. They chatted as they ate. Kazuma, you're leaving tomorrow. Let's have a toast, Roy said, raising his glass. Yes, Kazuma, you might be a useless ninny, but I believe you'll become a great merchant, Aqua added, already slightly drunk. Aqua, stop drinking. You're going to get drunk, Roy said, taking her glass and finishing her drink. To your success. Luna said, her cheeks flushed from the alcohol. No, give it back. I want to drink. Aqua protested, clinging to Roy and trying to grab her glass back. Aqua, you're drunk. No more drinking for you, Roy said, holding her firmly to prevent her from causing a scene. Aqua soon calmed down and fell asleep. Kazuma, seeing this, felt a pang of sadness and drank a few more glasses. After a few rounds of drinks, they decided to go to the inn. See you tomorrow, Luna, Roy said, waving goodbye. Yes, see you tomorrow. Roy carried the sleeping Aqua and walked to the inn with Kazuma. Roy-san, Aqua is actually a goddess. I hope you can really help her defeat the Demon King, Kazuma confessed as they reached the inn's entrance. I know. Aqua already told me. Don't worry, I'll defeat the Demon King, Roy reassured him with a smile. Kazuma sighed in relief. I see. Then I'll see you tomorrow. He entered the inn. Roy carried Aqua to her room, tucked her into bed, then went to his own room to rest. The next morning, Roy woke up Aqua, whose sleeping posture was as terrible as ever, and they went to the Adventurers Guild. Kazuma had already left to explore business opportunities. Their paths were diverging. Good morning, Luna. We're here to take on a quest, Roy greeted Luna with a smile. Good morning. What kind of quest are you interested in, Roy-sama? Luna asked with a sweet smile. Roy and Aqua looked at the quest board and chose a quest to subjugate a pack of wolves. They had to kill 10 wolves for a reward of 1 million Eris. This quest was more difficult than the giant frog quest, but the reward was also much higher. Roy-sama, for this quest, I suggest you recruit some teammates, Luna said with a concerned frown. Yes, our party is a bit small. Let's recruit some people, Aqua agreed. Alright, let's do that, Roy said with a smile. I'll handle it. Aqua excitedly went to the bulletin board and wrote a recruitment notice. Roy's lips twitched as he read it. It said, a fun and friendly party, led by the beautiful and noble Archbishop Aqua-sama, is looking for new members to join our adventure. The rest of the notice was filled with nonsensical and Shinibu-esque phrases. But he didn't change anything. After all, this kind of notice was perfect for attracting Megumin, the crazy explosion girl, and Darkness, the masochistic crusader. Roy and Aqua waited in the guild hall. Since the notice was posted by 2 advanced job holders, it attracted a lot of attention. But the requirement for new members to also have advanced jobs deterred most adventurers. After all, this was a town for novice adventurers. Advanced jobs were rare. They waited until noon. Seeing Aqua dozing off on the table, Roy ordered some food. Wow, food. It smells so good. I'm starving. Aqua suddenly exclaimed, her energy restored as she grabbed a frog leg and started munching on it. Roy sighed. Roy, you should eat too, Aqua said, offering him a frog leg. Roy chuckled and accepted it. Aqua might be a bit of an airhead, but she still knew how to care for others. Roy suspected that she simply lacked proper guidance. If someone taught her some manners and etiquette, she might actually act like a proper goddess. He was starting to look forward to that. Just then, a little girl wearing a red mage robe and carrying a staff approached them. Roy instantly recognized her as Megumin. I saw your recruitment notice, she declared. Aqua and Roy looked at her. Megumin gulped, eyeing the food on the table, then said, this encounter is fate. I've been waiting for people like you. She paused, then struck a dramatic pose. I am Megumin. An archmage. Wielder of the strongest offensive magic, explosion. Roy's lips twitched at her Shinibu-esque introduction, but he found her quite endearing. With her black hair, red eyes, and petite figure, she was an adorable little girl. This forbidden power, feared and envied by the world, do you desire it? Megumin asked dramatically, covering half her face with her cloak. Roy understood what she meant. She was asking if they needed her as their archmage. Welcome to the party, Megumin, Roy said with a smile. Really? Megumin was surprised that he agreed so easily. Of course. Ha! You have good taste. After all, my ultimate magic, explosion, can shatter. Megumin suddenly swayed and almost fell, but Roy caught her just in time. Megumin, are you all right? He asked with concern. Her stomach growled in response. Megumin blushed. Actually, I haven't eaten in 3 days. Roy's eye twitched. That was rough. If they hadn't accepted her, she might have starved to death. Here, have some food, Roy said gently, placing her on a chair. Really? Megumin's eyes lit up, staring at the food on the table. Of course. Eat up, Roy chuckled, patting her hat. Megumin didn't hesitate and started devouring the food. Chapter 236, Megumin's Explosion Magic Demon Wolves Extermination Quest. Red eyes, are you a crimson demon? Aqua suddenly asked, noticing Megumin's distinctive feature. Indeed. I am Megumin, one of the most powerful mages of the Crimson Demon clan. Megumin declared, striking a dramatic pose as she munched on a frog leg, much to Roy's amusement. While Megumin was eating, Aqua asked to see her adventurer card. After examining it, she confirmed that Megumin wasn't lying. Hey, Roy, she really is an arch-wizard. An advanced job that can use powerful magic. Yes, that's right, Roy replied with a smile and a nod. So, she's in? Definitely. Megumin is a perfect fit for our party. Megumin, overhearing their conversation, beamed with joy. The party was formed. After finishing their lunch, they set off towards the plains where the demon wolves roamed. These wolves would often attack merchant caravans, which is why a quest to subjugate them had been posted. However, the wolves were numerous, and it wasn't realistic to try and kill only 10 of them. After all, they were pack creatures. Attacking one would likely anger the entire pack. That's why no one had taken this quest yet. But Roy wasn't worried. They arrived near the wolf den. Looking down at the hundreds of wolves gathered below, Megumin and Aqua gulped. Are we really going to fight them? They look scary, Megumin said, her legs trembling slightly. Don't worry, with Roy here, there's nothing to be afraid of, Aqua assured her, her confidence in Roy unwavering. Yes, Megumin, trust me. I can handle these wolves. But first, let's see your explosion magic. Fire one at the center of the pack, Roy said, pointing towards the wolves. Megumin's eyes lit up, and she couldn't resist the urge to show off her magic. She began chanting. A powerful wind picked up, and magical energy gathered around her staff. Darkness blacker than black and darker than dark, I beseech thee, grant me the crimson light. The time of awakening has come. The absurd and contradictory laws of the world shall be twisted and distorted. Dance, dance, dance. The collapse of the origin of my power, the unparalleled destruction that incinerates all creation. This is the ultimate explosion magic explosion. As she finished the incantation, the sky changed color. A massive amount of magical energy converged, forming a crimson beam of light that struck the wolves. Boom! The earth shook violently, and Aqua lost her balance, falling onto Roy's back. After a while, the tremors subsided. A massive crater, tens of meters in diameter, now scarred the earth where the wolves had been. Only scorched earth and molten rock remained. Megumin's explosion magic was powerful. It had wiped out nearly half the wolf pack with a single blast. But the cost was also immense. Megumin collapsed, her magical energy completely depleted. Roy caught her just in time. Megumin, are you all right? He asked with concern. My ultimate magic, explosion, consumes a tremendous amount of magical energy due to its immense power. In other words, because I used magic beyond my limits, I can't move now. So, I'll leave the rest to you, Megumin explained weakly. All right. Roy sighed. Although he knew Megumin was the type of mage who could only cast one spell before collapsing, he still couldn't help but feel a bit exasperated. Hey, Roy, those wolves are coming towards us. Aqua exclaimed, shaking his shoulder. Roy turned around and saw the remaining wolves charging towards them like a cavalry charge. He handed Megumin to Aqua. It's my turn now, he said, drawing his sword and fearlessly facing the wolves. Aqua and Megumin watched nervously. Could he really handle so many wolves alone? Their worries were soon dispelled as Roy's movements shocked them. His sword flashed like silver lightning, each strike cutting down one or more wolves. He danced through the pack, his movements graceful and deadly. In a matter of moments, the number of wolves dwindled significantly. Amazing! Megumin gasped. Was he really a novice adventurer with such incredible strength? Humph, of course he's strong. He's going to defeat the Demon King. Aqua said. Defeat the Demon King? That's amazing! Megumin exclaimed. The Demon King was the most powerful and evil being in this world. Countless adventurers had tried and failed to defeat him. Within moments, Roy had single-handedly defeated all the remaining wolves. Incredible! Megumin couldn't help but exclaim again. She looked at Roy with admiration. "Let's go back and have someone collect the carcasses," Roy said. The wolf carcasses could be sold for a good price, even more than the reward for the quest. He scooped Megumin up in a princess carry, and they headed back to town. Megumin blushed, feeling flustered by the close proximity to Roy. She remained silent the entire way back. "Roy-sama, you defeated all those wolves," Luna exclaimed, checking Roy's adventurer card back at the guild hall. The other adventurers were also stunned. The quest to subjugate the demon wolves had been on the board for a long time. And now, a 3-person party had accomplished it. The news spread quickly, shocking everyone in the town. "Roy-sama, here's your reward, 3 million eris," Luna said, handing him the coins. The reward included the money from selling the wolf carcasses and the quest reward. Luna would send someone to collect the carcasses later. We were able to defeat those wolves so quickly thanks to our powerful arch-wizard," Roy said with a smile, patting Megumin's head. Megumin had recovered some of her magical energy and could now move on her own. She blushed, flustered by his praise. No one had ever complimented her magic before. The other adventurers she had joined had always complained about her only being able to cast one spell before collapsing. "Roy, do you really think I'm a powerful arch-wizard?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with hope. "Of course. Without you, I wouldn't have been able to defeat those wolves so easily," Roy replied sincerely. Megumin's explosion had killed the Wolf King, which had been a huge help. "You really don't mind that I can only cast one spell before collapsing?" Megumin asked again, touched by his words. "Everyone has their strengths. Although you can only cast explosion once, its power is immense. If used strategically, it can be a great asset to our party," Roy explained with a smile. Megumin, feeling a sense of validation, threw her arms around him in a hug. This was the first time someone had acknowledged her magic and appreciated her for who she was. If Roy's system had a favorability rating, Megumin's would be close to maxing out. "Why can you only cast one spell? If you can use explosion, you should be able to use other spells too, right?" Aqua asked, confused. Explosion was a high-level spell, incredibly difficult to master. If Megumin could use such a powerful spell, she should be able to use weaker spells as well. "Humph. I only like explosion magic," Megumin declared proudly, striking a dramatic pose. Roy wasn't surprised. He already knew this. But Aqua and Luna were confused. "If you learned other spells, adventuring would be much easier," Luna said. "But I can only love explosion," Megumin insisted. "Even if I can only cast it once a day, even if I collapse afterwards, I still only love explosion. Because it was explosion that led me to the path of becoming an arch-wizard." Megumin's voice grew louder and more passionate with every word. It was like those who dedicated their lives to the way of the sword, only practicing swordsmanship. Such people could achieve great things in their chosen field. Luna, however, was speechless. This kind of mage would definitely be a burden, collapsing after a single spell and needing constant protection. But she didn't say anything and simply smiled politely. Some of the adventurers around them understood Megumin's dedication, while others didn't. Chapter 237, The Masochist Crusader, Darkness, Goddess of Luck, Eris. This is so delicious," Megumin moaned, savoring the frog leg. It was the best meal she had ever had since becoming an adventurer. Due to her insistence on only using explosion magic, she had been rejected by many parties and had never enjoyed such a luxurious meal before. And she had finally found people who acknowledged her. She was so lucky. Megumin glanced at Roy, then quickly lowered her head and continued eating with a blush. Roy, noticing her gaze, smirked. "Ah, this is so good," Aqua exclaimed, taking a sip of her drink. Roy had allowed her to have a drink since they had just completed a quest. Aqua was a notorious alcoholic and had been quite insistent on having some booze. After their satisfying meal, Megumin and Aqua returned to the inn to take a bath and rest. Roy, however, stayed at the Adventurers Guild, sipping his tea and waiting. He had seen a vision of Darkness arriving and asking to join their party through his prophecy magic. Darkness was also a problem child. Her attacks never hit, so no party wanted her. She would definitely be interested in joining their party after seeing Aqua's ridiculous recruitment notice. And Roy was quite interested in training this masochistic crusader. He had many ideas in mind, such as bullet play and other kinky things. Soon, he saw a girl with blonde hair tied in a ponytail and clad in shining armor approaching the bulletin board. It was Darkness. She read the notice, scanned the guild hall, then walked towards Roy. "I saw your recruitment notice. Are you still looking for members?" she asked with a serious expression. Roy, who had been observing her, couldn't help but be amused. She was a beautiful girl, and it was hard to believe that this noble lady was a masochist. "Yes, we are," he replied with a smile. "Really? That's great. I've been looking for a party like yours. My name is Darkness. I'm a crusader, and I'd like to join your party," she said, her voice slightly breathless. Noticing her flushed cheeks, Roy smirked. "Joining our party is fine, but there are some conditions." "Tell me." "I'll agree to anything," Darkness said with a determined nod. "Oh? Even being tied up or forced to wear cat ears and a tail?" Darkness's eyes widened, and her blush deepened. "Yes, I agree. Please let me join your party," she exclaimed, her voice filled with excitement. "What a kinky request. It seems I've found the right people," she thought with a thrill. Roy chuckled inwardly. "All right, then you're in." "Thank you." Darkness bowed deeply. Roy suddenly had an idea. Darkness's family was a noble family, wasn't it? Perhaps he could ask them to send someone to teach Aqua some etiquette. But that wasn't a priority right now. "Darkness, I'm Roy, the leader of this party." "Just call me Roy," he said. "Roy-san," Darkness repeated, then added with a blush, "Actually, there's something I'm not very good at. Although I'm confident in my strength and endurance, I can't hit anything." "That's not a problem. We already have a useless goddess and an arch-wizard who collapses after casting one spell. Adding a useless crusader won't change much," Roy replied with a shrug and a grin. "Ugh, how can you be so blunt about calling me useless?" Darkness exclaimed, her face flushed with masochistic pleasure. "Roy-san, although I'm a useless crusader, I'll still do my best to protect the party. Please use me as a shield as much as you like," she declared, leaning closer to Roy until she was practically in his arms. "Of course. Now, Darkness, go back and prepare. Meet us here tomorrow," Roy said, gently pushing her away. "Yes, sir." Darkness nodded and left. Roy watched her leave with a smile. He remembered that Eris, the goddess of luck, was Darkness's friend. The Dustiness family had been worshipping Eris for generations, and Darkness, due to her eccentric personality, had no friends. But Eris was a kind, gentle, and generous goddess who occasionally enjoyed playing pranks. She was also very responsible. When Darkness had prayed to Eris for a friend, Eris had descended to the mortal world in the form of a thief named Chris and befriended Darkness. She had also been retrieving the cheat abilities that Aqua had given to other humans, essentially cleaning up Aqua's mess. As the goddess of luck, she was unbeatable in games of chance, such as drawing lots or rock paper scissors. And she often used this to threaten Aqua. The next day, Roy, Aqua, and Megumin went to the Adventurers Guild. "Roy, you're saying that after we went back last night, you recruited another party member?" Aqua asked, surprised. She was curious about who he had recruited. "That's right. A crusader with an advanced job," Roy confirmed with a nod and a smile. "Really? That's great!" Aqua exclaimed. Having another advanced job holder in their party was definitely a good thing. "By the way, Roy, you've leveled up, right? Do you want to learn some new skills? Like explosion?" Megumin suddenly chimed in. I remember you're a magic swordsman, Roy, that means you can learn magic now. Aqua also expressed her interest. How about learning my water magic? Roy's lips twitched. Even Aqua, the goddess of water, couldn't compare to him when it came to water magic. Although his natural affinity was ice, he was still proficient in water magic. As for explosion magic, he had already learned it. I'll pass on the water magic, Aqua. But I wouldn't mind learning explosion, Roy replied. He had learned explosion after witnessing Megumin cast it. He had to admit, explosion was a powerful spell. If he used it, he could easily destroy the planet. The power of explosion was determined by the caster's magic power. The more magic power, the stronger the explosion. And once learned, it was like a skill ingrained in one's DNA, easily cast at will. So, Megumin's long and dramatic incantation was just her being Shinibu. See? Explosion is the strongest. Megumin exclaimed, throwing her arms around Roy in excitement. Calm down, little girl, Roy chuckled, gently pushing her away. Megumin froze, hearing his words. A little girl? He called me a little girl, she mumbled, her face pale. It seemed the term little girl was a serious blow to her pride. But she was indeed a little girl. Roy patted her head and said with a smile, Yes, Megumin, you're an adorable little girl. See cute, Megumin blushed, flustered by the compliment. Just then, they heard footsteps approaching. A lolicon? This. Darkness stared at Roy with wide eyes, her finger pointing at him accusingly. This is amazing. I knew I was right about you, she exclaimed, her face flushed with excitement. Roy's eye twitched. Darkness's loud outburst had attracted the attention of everyone in the guild hall. Scary. Chris, who was standing behind Darkness, pretended to be frightened, her arms wrapped around herself. Of course, she was just messing with them. Who is this? Roy asked, pretending not to know Chris. I'm Chris, a thief and a friend of Darkness, Chris replied with a playful wink. Nice to meet you, Chris. Call me Roy. By the way, I heard you leveled up. Would you be interested in learning some thief skills? Chris offered. She was grateful to Roy for accepting Darkness into his party. Thief skills, huh? Sure, I wouldn't mind learning a few, Roy replied with a shrug. He was particularly interested in the steal skill, which could randomly steal items from others. Then follow me, Chris said with a grin. She led them out of the guild hall and into an isolated alley. Chapter 238, Stealing Goddess Eris, Darkness Game. Thieves have various skills like sensing enemies and hiding. But my specialty is this. I'll show you. Watch closely. Chris, standing in an isolated alley, turned to Roy with a playful grin and extended her hand towards him. Roy could clearly see her rather disappointing figure. With her short white hair and black bandeau, she had the body of a young girl. Go ahead, Chris-san, he said with a chuckle and a nod. Chris didn't waste any time and shouted at Steal. A bright light enveloped her hand. Roy could feel a strange power trying to affect him, but he didn't resist. Instead, he focused the power on the ordinary sword at his waist. He didn't want her to steal anything important. In the next moment, the sword appeared in Chris's hand. Whoa! It's Roy's sword! Megumin exclaimed. This skill was quite something. If someone stole her staff during battle, she would be doomed. This is the thief skill, Steal. If it's successful, you can take anything from your target. Amazing, right? Chris explained with a smug grin, then returned the sword to Roy. It is quite impressive, Roy admitted, then learned the steal skill through his adventurer card. Once he learned it, it felt like an instinct, something he could do effortlessly. Steal. Roy reached out towards Chris with his hand. He could feel the skill's power probing Chris, and he realized he could actually control what it targeted. This was amazing. While others could only steal random items, he could choose his target. He could steal anything he wanted. He focused his mind, and a soft object materialized in his hand. Roy smirked, feeling the soft fabric. Chris suddenly blushed and covered her shorts, glaring at him with embarrassment. "Eh? What did you steal, Roy?" Aqua asked, curious. "Ahem, it seems I made a mistake." "I didn't steal anything," Roy coughed, quickly putting the stolen item in his pocket. Chris, hearing this, didn't reveal that her panties had been stolen. It was too embarrassing. "Oh, that's too bad. It seems this skill isn't that easy to learn," Megumin said, relieved. "It just takes practice. Anyway, let's head back to the guild and celebrate Darkness joining our party," Roy said, quickly changing the subject. He didn't want Chris to blurt out that he had stolen her panties. "Okay." Aqua and Megumin readily agreed. Darkness and Chris, with a slight blush, also nodded. Back at the guild hall, they sat down at a table. Roy noticed that Chris was acting a bit strange. It was probably because she wasn't wearing any panties and the chair was cold. He couldn't help but smirk. Chris, noticing his amusement, glared at him. They chatted and got to know each other better. Aqua and Megumin welcomed Darkness to the party. Suddenly, an announcement echoed through the guild hall. "Emergency quest! Emergency quest!" Luna's voice boomed through the loudspeakers. "All adventurers, please gather at the main gate immediately. I repeat, all adventurers, please gather at the main gate immediately." The adventurers in the hall were confused but still headed towards the town gate. The entire town was in a commotion as the residents also heard the announcement. Roy chuckled. The cause of this chaos was cabbages. These cabbages, not wanting to be eaten, had become sentient and were migrating across mountains and lakes, seeking a peaceful place to die. And now, they had arrived at Axel, the town of novice adventurers. The adventurers' task was to capture these cabbages. But these weren't ordinary cabbages. They could fly at high speeds, and their impact was strong enough to injure or even kill a person. Ordinary adventurers couldn't stop them. This was a town for novice adventurers. Most of them weren't very strong. In the original story, if Megumin hadn't used explosion magic, the adventurers would have been wiped out. No one could stop the flying cabbages. But using explosion came with a heavy price. These cabbages were actually delicious and valuable. A single cabbage was worth 10,000 eris. And there were thousands of them heading towards the town. Roy, Aqua, Megumin, Darkness, and Chris arrived at the town gate. Give it back," Chris hissed, approaching Roy with a flushed face. She was demanding the return of her stolen panties. "Chris, did I take something from you?" Roy asked innocently with a smile. Chris puffed out her cheeks and glared at him. This guy was pretending that nothing had happened. How shameless! Chris was also a mischievous girl who wasn't afraid of embarrassment. In the original story, she had even publicly revealed that her panties had been stolen. But since no one else knew about it yet, she was too embarrassed to say anything now. But Roy couldn't push her too far. If she decided to expose him, it would be troublesome. Ahem. Chris, don't worry. After we complete this quest, come to the inn and I'll return it to you, he promised. Really? Chris looked at him skeptically. Of course. I wouldn't lie to you, Roy said with a sincere nod. Chris rolled her eyes. Wasn't he the one who had just denied taking anything from her? Fine, she agreed reluctantly. She couldn't reveal her secret here with so many adventurers around. Roy smirked. This goddess was quite naive. Just then, the adventurers gasped. Even Megumin couldn't help but strike a dramatic pose. The storm is finally here, she declared. Everyone, get ready. It's harvest time. Aqua also exclaimed excitedly. The cabbages had finally arrived. They filled the sky, a green swarm flying towards the town. They had black eyes and could even make sounds, making them look somewhat cute. Charge, a bald adventurer shouted, and the adventurers rushed towards the cabbages. Roy, Aqua, Megumin, Darkness, and Chris, however, didn't join the fray immediately. Everyone, the annual cabbage harvest has arrived. These cabbages are of excellent quality. Each one is worth 10,000 eras. Luna announced. So please try to catch as many as you can and bring them here. She pointed at several large cages that had been prepared. The adventurers cheered and rushed towards the cabbages with renewed enthusiasm. Roy-sama, please do your best. Luna said to Roy, seeing that he wasn't moving. Don't worry, none of these cabbages will escape, Roy replied with a confident smile. He glanced at Luna, who was now dressed more modestly. Roy, shouldn't we be doing something? Aqua asked impatiently, seeing the other adventurers already catching cabbages. Megumin and Darkness also looked at him questioningly. Don't worry, these cabbages aren't that easy to deal with. And they won't be able to catch them all, Roy explained. The cabbages were hostile towards humans. Some even deliberately rammed into them. As if to prove his point, a scream suddenly echoed from the battlefield. An adventurer had been sent flying by a cabbage. More and more screams followed. The adventurers were gradually overwhelmed by the sheer number of cabbages. Just then, Darkness couldn't take it anymore and charged into the fray. She saw an adventurer lying on the ground, injured and unable to move, with more cabbages heading towards him. Danger, she shouted, jumping in front of the adventurer. Thud. The cabbage slammed into her with tremendous force, but she only stumbled slightly. Then, more cabbages rammed into her. Roy sighed. Darkness's masochistic side was acting up again. He teleported to her side, swatting away the cabbages and pulling her into his arms. If you want to play games, I'll play with you back home. But I won't allow you to do anything reckless in public, he whispered in her ear. Darkness nodded obediently, her face flushed with anticipation for the games Roy had promised her. Chapter 239, Harvesting Cabbages. Eris joins the party. Roy, hugging Darkness, suddenly slapped his forehead. He had forgotten about another problem child in their party. Megumin, her eyes glowing red, stepped forward, her cape billowing dramatically. Before my ultimate explosion magic, no one can stand. Wahahaha, she declared, then suddenly blushed and giggled, clearly eager to unleash her destructive spell. But Roy couldn't allow her to use explosion. It would damage most of the cabbages. He was planning to capture them and sell them for money to buy a house. Megumin, stop right there, Roy said, teleporting to her side and gently ruffling her hair. Roy, what are you doing? I can't resist the urge to unleash my explosion magic against such a massive army. Megumin protested, struggling to break free from his grasp. You idiot! Roy sighed, feeling a headache coming on. Megumin, these cabbages are worth a lot of money. It would be a waste to destroy them. How about we capture them all and use the money to buy you a better staff? Yes. We have to catch them all. Aqua chimed in, her eyes sparkling with greed. Really? You'll buy me a new staff? Megumin's eyes lit up. No mage could resist the allure of a good staff. Of course I promise, Roy assured her, patting her head. But how do we catch them? It looks like the others are struggling, Chris said, pointing towards the adventurers, who were being overwhelmed by the cabbages. Luna, standing behind them, also looked worried. The town was filled with defenseless civilians. They wouldn't stand a chance against the flying cabbages. Don't worry, leave it to me, Roy said with a confident smile, then stepped forward. The girls watched expectantly, curious to see how he would handle this situation. Roy smirked, then extended his hand towards the swarm of cabbages. Suddenly, all the cabbages froze in mid-air, then flew towards the cages Luna had prepared. Under Roy's magic, they flew into the cages one after another. Everyone was stunned. Controlling so many cabbages at once, it was an incredible feat, especially for a novice adventurer. But everyone knew that Roy had only registered as an adventurer a few days ago. Amazing! As expected of Roy-sama. Luna exclaimed, her eyes filled with admiration. Although she knew Roy was talented, she hadn't expected him to be this powerful. Megumin and Darkness were also impressed. "Thank you, Roy-sama. Thank you. We would have been in trouble without you. You saved us, Roy-sama." The injured adventurers expressed their gratitude. If Roy hadn't intervened, they might have been killed. "Don't mention it. Protecting the town is our duty," Roy said with a dismissive wave of his hand and a smirk. He had saved them as an afterthought. The important thing was that he had captured almost all the cabbages. They would fetch a hefty sum. The other adventurers didn't mind that he had taken all the credit. After all, he had saved their lives. They returned to the guild hall. The staff were busy cleaning up the battlefield and counting the cabbages. It would take a while, as there were simply too many cabbages. It wasn't until evening that they finally finished counting. Roy and the others were enjoying a meal made with the cabbages. "This is delicious," Roy commented, savoring the taste. Even with simple cooking methods, the cabbages were quite tasty. If he or Shizuka and Siko were to cook them, they would be even more delicious. Fortunately, he had used magic to store some of the cabbages earlier. He would take them back and let the girls try them. "You're a true crusader, Darkness. To stand up to those dangerous cabbages and protect others with your sturdy body, even the cabbages couldn't penetrate your defenses." Aqua suddenly exclaimed, praising Darkness. After the battle, Aqua had grown fond of Darkness. Darkness blushed. "It's nothing. I'm just a slightly tough woman. I'm useless at everything else except protecting others." Roy's lips twitched. "You're not just slightly tough. You're a masochist," he thought. Aqua, Darkness, and Megumin chatted and got to know each other better. But then, the conversation shifted to Roy. "Roy is amazing too," Aqua suddenly exclaimed, leaning closer to him with a smile. "Yes. Although he doesn't have powerful destructive magic, that spell that made all the cabbages fly into the cages was incredible," Megumin added with admiration. "Yeah, that magic was amazing. I wonder what it feels like to be controlled by it," Darkness mused, her eyes sparkling with masochistic curiosity. Even Chris, who was secretly a goddess, was impressed. Roy, seeing their gazes, shrugged and chuckled. "It was just a simple spell. But with this, our party is becoming more and more amazing. All four of us have advanced jobs now," Aqua exclaimed. "Speaking of which, I haven't told Megumin and Darkness about our party's goal yet, have I?" Roy said. Megumin and Darkness looked at him curiously. "That's right. The ultimate goal of our party is to defeat the Demon King. If you don't have that resolve," Roy declared, using reverse psychology. He knew Megumin and Darkness wouldn't be able to resist such a challenge. "That's right. That's right," Aqua chimed in. Darkness's eyes lit up. "Fighting the Demon King is dangerous. But it has always been a crusader's duty to battle the Demon King. So, I have a good reason to join now." Roy's lips twitched. Well, since she was so eager to battle him, the Demon King, he wouldn't disappoint her. Megumin suddenly slammed her hands on the table and stood up, her red eyes blazing. "I am Megumin, the #1 mage of the Crimson Demon Clan. Wielder of Explosion. My ultimate magic will bring down the Demon King," she declared passionately. "Excellent. Welcome to the party. Now." Roy turned to Chris. "Chris, what about you?" Me?" Chris was surprised. She hadn't planned on joining them. Her purpose in coming to this world was simply to retrieve the artifacts. "Yes, would you like to join us?" Roy asked with a smile. "Well." Just as Chris was about to decline, she heard Roy's voice in her head. "Chris, if you don't agree, you won't get your panties back." Chris froze, then looked at Roy, then at Aqua and Megumin, who seemed oblivious to their telepathic conversation. He was threatening her with her panties again. How shameless. She bit her lip, then sighed in defeat. Fine, I'll join. But I can't promise I'll stay with you forever, she said. She had to travel the world to collect the artifacts. She couldn't stay in one place for too long. No problem, Roy said with a chuckle. As long as she joined now, he would find a way to keep her around. He didn't want her to disappear like she did in the original story. He raised his glass. Then let's toast to our new party. Cheers. They all raised their glasses and drank happily. Meanwhile, the guild staff had finished counting the cabbages. Roy-sama, we've counted the cabbages you caught. There are 135,000 of them, worth 1.3 billion Eris, Luna reported, approaching Roy. But since the Novice Adventurers Guild doesn't have that much money, I've contacted the headquarters. They'll send the full amount soon. Roy smiled at Luna, who was bowing respectfully. Thank you for your hard work. Have a drink with us. He was growing increasingly fond of Luna. He might even consider making her his servant, even though she wasn't a fighter. He didn't always choose his servants based on their strength. Yes, Roy-sama. Luna sat beside him and poured him a drink, then poured one for herself. Congratulations on your successful harvest, Roy-sama. Cheers. She said, downing her drink in one gulp. The other adventurers were stunned. Luna had never had a drink with any adventurer before, let alone offered a toast. But remembering Roy's incredible talent and power, they remained silent. Chapter 240, Capturing Darkness, Arrival of a Demon King's Army. Wow! So much money! Does this mean I can buy anything I want? Aqua exclaimed, her eyes sparkling as she heard about the massive amount of Eris Roy had earned. Not a chance. You don't need anything, Aqua. And you're definitely not allowed to use it for gambling or alcohol, Roy said sternly. He had to help Aqua get rid of her bad habits. Aqua's face crumpled, and she latched onto Roy, wailing, No. Roy, you earn so much. Give me some. Just a little. A few 100 million will do. Roy's eye twitched as he gently pushed the blubbering Aqua away. A few 100 million? That was outrageous. Get a grip, Aqua. You look ridiculous, he scolded. As soon as he finished speaking, Aqua instantly transformed, her demeanor shifting from a sobbing mess to that of a graceful lady. Her mood swings are insane, Roy thought, shaking his head. Roy Oniai-chan, please give me some money. I promise I won't waste it. Aqua pleaded, her voice sweet and innocent. She had switched from her usual idiotic persona to that of a charming goddess, even calling him Oniai-chan with a seductive tone. Roy almost caved. Fine. Here's 1 million Eris. But no gambling or excessive drinking. If I find out you've been misbehaving, you're in trouble. Understand? Aqua snatched the money and cheered, I knew you were the best, Roy. She had conveniently ignored his warning. Don't worry, Megumin, Darkness, and Chris, I'll give you your share later, Roy assured the others. Yay! I'm going to buy a fancy new staff. Megumin exclaimed, her eyes gleaming with excitement. She had always wanted a better staff. Darkness, however, didn't seem too interested. As a noble, she wasn't short on money. I get a share too? Chris asked in surprise. Of course. Just tell me what you want, Roy said with a smile and a nod. Wonderful. Roy, I want a staff too. Aqua suddenly chimed in, clinging to Roy and acting cute. After spending so much time with him, she had learned how to manipulate him. They played around for a while, then finally returned to the inn late at night. Roy was about to go to bed when he heard a knock on his door. He opened the door and saw Chris standing there. He knew what she wanted. Roy, give me back my panties, she demanded, holding out her hand. About that, come in first, Roy said, pulling her into the room and closing the door behind them. Chris was startled, and her face flushed slightly. This was the first time a man had held her hand. What are you doing? She asked nervously. Didn't you want your panties back? Roy teased with a grin. Suddenly, he realized that Chris wasn't wearing any panties now that he had them. He glanced at her skirt, his imagination running wild. Chris, noticing his gaze, instinctively covered her skirt and puffed out her cheeks. Give them back. Or else. Although she didn't finish her sentence, she had already decided to make him pay if he didn't return her panties. Here you go. Roy didn't play dumb. He took out her panties from his pocket. Chris snatched them and ran out of the room. Roy sighed, a bit disappointed. He had wanted to tease the naive goddess a bit more. But not long after Chris left, there was another knock on his door. He opened it and saw Darkness standing there. Had she actually taken his words from earlier seriously and come here for some special training? If so, he would gladly oblige. Darkness, what brings you here so late? Roy asked curiously. Didn't you say you wanted to play that game with me? Darkness mumbled, blushing and avoiding his gaze. Roy was surprised. So she really was here for that. But he was also a bit puzzled. Darkness, despite her masochistic tendencies, wouldn't normally engage in such activities with just anyone. After all, she was a noblewoman. Darkness, why do you want to play this game with me? It's not something you should play with just anyone, right? He asked directly. Because when I first saw you, Roy-san, I knew you were the same kind of person as me. So I don't mind playing that game with you. I like you, Darkness confessed, her face flushed. Roy was stunned. He hadn't expected to be seen as a pervert by the masochistic crusader, and he certainly hadn't expected a confession. But he wasn't going to refuse a willing Darkness. And so, they played their game in his room. And Roy, of course, didn't hold back. The next morning, Roy and the girls went to the Adventurers Guild. But before that, they had visited the weapon shop and bought new equipment for Aqua, Megumin, and Darkness. Megumin was ecstatic about her new staff and refused to let go of it. Roy chuckled, finding her reaction amusing. Aqua, however, was disappointed. She had thought she could finally enjoy some drinks now that they had money. But Roy had already spoken to Luna, asking her not to sell any alcohol to Aqua. Luna, out of respect for Roy, readily agreed. That's why Aqua was sulking. Chris was nowhere to be seen. So, only the four of them went to the guild hall. Now that everyone has new equipment, let's take on a quest. Darkness declared. She hadn't changed her armor, as it was already high quality. Yes, and it has to be one with lots of weaklings. Megumin added eagerly, clutching her new staff. She had been holding back her explosion magic since the cabbage incident. Now, with her new staff, she was eager to unleash it. No, I want something that hits hard, Darkness chimed in, her face flushed and her thighs squeezing together. Megumin and Aqua didn't find her behavior strange. But Roy smirked inwardly. He had put a toy inside Darkness earlier that morning. That's why she had already climaxed several times on their way to the guild. But thanks to his magic, there were no visible signs of her excitement. Roy was impressed by her ability to maintain her composure in such a state. He looked at the blushing and panting Darkness with amusement. They reached the quest board. Huh? Why are there only high-level quests left? Darkness and Megumin wondered. Usually, the board was filled with quests. But now, there were only a few left, and they were all high-level, too dangerous for their party with an average level of only around 10. Megumin had reached level 11 after defeating the wolves. Roy was level 13. And Darkness was also around level 10. Without Roy, it would be risky for them to take on a high-level quest. I apologize, Luna said, approaching them with an apologetic smile. It seems that a Demon King General has been stationed near the town recently. Due to his influence, the weaker monsters have all gone into hiding, and only the stronger ones remain. So, there are fewer quests available. I see, Aqua sighed. They couldn't take on any quests like this. What do we do now? Megumin whined. She had just gotten a new staff and was eager to test it out. Luna, is there a quest about the Demon King General? Roy asked. Eh? Luna was surprised, then replied, yes, there is. There's a hefty reward for defeating him. But it's a very difficult quest, so it's not posted here. You'll have to go to the headquarters to accept it. And so far, no adventurer has taken it. Darkness and Megumin's faces turned grim. This quest was undoubtedly dangerous. Then we'll take it, Roy declared with a confident smirk. What? The girls were shocked. They hadn't expected Roy to accept such a dangerous quest. With their current levels, it was practically suicide. Roy looked at the stunned Darkness and Megumin and chuckled. What's wrong? Is the strongest explosion mage and the masochistic crusader scared? How could I be scared? I'm the one who controls the strongest magic, explosion. Megumin retorted, her pride wounded. Yes, as a crusader, I won't back down from a fight, Darkness agreed with a determined nod. They had been riled up by Roy's taunts. Aqua, however, looked worried. Roy, I'm scared. Why don't we get stronger first, then challenge the Demon King General, she pleaded. Roy sighed. She was a goddess, yet she was so timid. That wraps up this part of What If Reborn in Highschool DxD is a Lucifuge. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.